is my favorite moment of the service. I get to get up here and just see all your beautiful faces. And I love it. It is so good to see you all. You're good-looking people. You can clap for yourselves. That's good. I love that we get to do this. I'm so grateful for Radiant Church. Radiant Church, just in all the things that we do, right? We don't come to church. We are the church. And the way that we work together, we take care of things, we encourage our community, being involved and living out the mission God called for us. I'm so grateful for all those that were part of Spring Clean yesterday. We had people that came and helped out chopping up trees and debris in the woods, and everybody came away with all their fingers, which is a really good thing. Like, that's a great thing. We're grateful for that. A lot of work on cleaning up around the building, even detailing chairs that you sit in, things that sometimes in a big facility like this we can take for granted. And what I love is we actually have all of our lawn care and and pretty much most of our internal cleaning is done by people who volunteer because they love doing it. They love serving. In fact, can we just thank all the people that are a part of those teams that just serve, and we're so grateful for them. Like Pastor Christy mentioned this afternoon, just come. All right, you don't have to bring anything. You just come. And we talk to the students every year that are part of this foster grad thing. They just are blown away that people believe in them. There are people there to celebrate them. They're excited about it. It is something fantastic. So just come for a few minutes, maybe even just pick 2 or 3 that you want to encourage and just hear a little bit of their story, and then you can go home. But coming is so important, creating that environment just to celebrate them. We absolutely love it. So here's one of the realities of the world we live in, right? We live in a world that is just fighting over morality right now. Whether it's things like Ukraine or LGBT or immigration or abortion or Palestine, and it doesn't matter what the issue is, everyone's got a sense of morality and various sides. Like, who has value and who has a better understanding of what's important. And really more than that, what it boils down to is it becomes a battle of who's more superior than the others. In a sense, because if you don't believe what I believe, you're a demon, right? We just demonize everybody on either side. And it's really not right, left. It's really not up, down. It's such a three-dimensional dynamic. And even we have religions that have been in conflict, even those that are following Christian denominations. News in the last couple of weeks of one of the denominations that I've just loved over the years making some decisions that just break my heart. And it's hard to watch all these things, and it's interesting as people say, why we're all in this together, but have different perspectives, and how we should make decisions, and how do we understand what's right and wrong. And in the midst of all that, here's what I want us to do this summer. I'm going to let you know that we're setting up today. We're setting up for a journey, and we're going to go on a spiritual journey with Jesus together throughout the summer. We're just going to walk with Jesus this summer. And what we're going to do is we're going to do it by using the book that John wrote. And if you have your Bibles, you can turn to the Gospel of John, the book of John. And we're not going to do a verse-by-verse study each week. But we're going to look at the significant events of Jesus and how Jesus was a part of them and get us a deeper understanding and a better picture of who Jesus is. And as a result, we're going to get a better picture of who God is. And as a result of that, we're going to get a deeper understanding of who the people of God should be and how the people of God should be defined. All right, this summer is going to be a great time just to invite friends. I know people have activities, like this tends to be the weekend where there's lots of grad parties and people are traveling and bring sports and all those kind of things. And that happens throughout the summer and vacation and those times. But I want you to know that every week this summer is going to be a great week to invite a friend. Invite a friend to come with you and then go out to lunch afterwards or go somewhere together as we work together to go on this journey with Jesus. You know, there's a lot of things that are happening in the world, and we could join in that battle over debates of values and morals. But I believe more than anything, what we need is simply to encounter Jesus. We need to encounter Jesus. All right, morals and values will never save our world. And implementing behavioral change will never change your world. See, John was a follower of Jesus, and like all followers of Jesus in that ancient Jewish community, they really felt morals and values that they had it together because they had the law of Moses, right? They knew the right things to do, that in that community, those kind of things were treasured. They treasured their perspective on God and how they were to live. They treasured that they were the people of God. But what's interesting is John doesn't write us an account of how great a teacher Jesus was. In fact, John doesn't talk about his superior values. John spent 3 years, day in and day out with Jesus. He was in Jesus' inner circle. Like, he spent more time with Jesus than pretty much anyone else. He was with Jesus at the cross as Jesus gave his life. He was next to Mary, Jesus' mother, and Jesus asked him to take care of his mom. Mary, Jesus' mother, lived with John for many, many years, and they told the stories and the encounters and the experiences that there were together. John was the only one of Jesus' disciples that didn't die a martyr's death. He lived to, many estimate, into his 90s, and he lived to a ripe age. And in that time, he kept encountering visions and dynamics. And when he finally, towards the end of his life, they finally talked him, kind of in a sense, to writing your account of who Jesus was. Will you tell us what it was like to be with Jesus so we don't lose it? The way he starts it tells us an awful lot about who Jesus is. Right? He spends more time with Jesus in life and afterlife, and he starts this letter with the most unique way. The other authors that told their story, and they're telling it to a different audience and different perspectives, and they started, many of them, at the beginning of Jesus' life. This is how Jesus' life started, and they're trying to show how Jesus fit in to kind of the worldview and the perspectives of the people that they were writing to. But John just gives us Jesus. So I'm just going to give you Jesus and everything that I encountered with you. And what I want to invite you to this summer is I want you to join me and the rest of the team as we're going to go on a spiritual journey each week and just see where Jesus takes us. We just want to be captivated by Jesus. If there's a heart and a prayer that we would be a church, not a church that's known for anything else other than we want Jesus. So take your Bibles, open to John chapter 1. And we're going to start right at verse 1. It says this: in the beginning, the Word already existed. The Word was with God, and the Word was God. It's really an interesting way to start a biography, right? He could have told us, as most people do, about Jesus' personality. He could have told us about, maybe about his accolades, some about Jesus' kindness. As a pastor, I've been a part of many, many funerals over the years, and I want to tell you that at your funeral, let me tell you what your funeral is going to be like, okay? Because this happens at every funeral. At your funeral, your life will be summarized with a couple of adjectives and a few anecdotes. All of our lives, that's what it gets up at the end of we were kind, they were loving, they were caring, and here's a story to describe that. And here's a story where I saw that. Right? That's what happens at all of us at the end of our lives. We're summed up in that simple way. And John goes, no, Jesus, though, if I'm going to tell you about him, I can't just tell you a couple of adjectives, and I can't just tell you a couple of cute stories. Because when I think about Jesus is, he's everything. He's everything. He says he's the Word. And the word that John uses is this Greek word logos. Now, this is really significant because he's saying logos, because logos in the Greek understanding of philosophy at that age, we would say it this way. Greek philosophers believed that the logos represented a cosmic spiritual force. Right? It was impersonal and a harmonious force that brought balance and divine structure to the universe. So when he's writing about the logos, everyone thought, well, there's something that holds the universe together, and there's this impersonal logos, this force. But John goes, after all the time I've spent with Jesus, I'm going to start with telling you, the logos, this force, it's not impersonal. It's him. It's personal. It's deeply personal. Those of you that are Star Wars nerds, you can understand kind of that concept of the logos, right? It's the force that holds all things in balance. It gives structure and order. It itself is not good or bad. It depends how you use it and your heart coming into it. But what John is emphatically saying as he starts, he goes, what holds the world together It's Jesus. He's not a man. He is not a teacher. In fact, look what he says in verse 2. He says, no, he existed in the beginning with God. God created everything through him, and nothing was created except through him. That Jesus is a part of every piece of creation. Verse 4, the Word gave life to everything that was created, and his life brought light to everyone. Not just life in general, but his light. His life brings light and illuminates hope and everything. In verse 5, the light shines in the darkness, and the darkness can never extinguish it. When it comes to John talking about his experience with Jesus, John's going, I'm going to tell you about him. But before I tell you about him, you have to understand he is not just another great person. If you're going to understand the life of Jesus as a human among us, you have to understand that at the end of it, when I lived my whole life, everything that I've experienced with him, if I can go back and summarize him with a couple adjectives and some anecdotes, it's this: he is everything. He is everything. In fact, maybe we say it this way. This is what John's saying. Everything about Jesus is, you've got to get this, that Jesus is the full representation of God. He's the full representation of God. He is the Word. He exists with God. We're going to see this unpacked throughout this journey this summer. He wasn't a created being. He wasn't an angel. There's many different, there's some groups that believe that Jesus is important, but maybe he was a created. He was an angel. I'll maybe just give you a hint. There's one particular group that they'll go around knocking on doors and give you a magazine and ask if they can tell you maybe about Jesus, or tell you about God, and they can spend some time. And I'll just give you a hint. I've done this once or twice, but most of the time, if I have time, I love to engage in a conversation and see where it goes. But otherwise, if you go, hey, I'm with you. I want to see God change the world. I want to see God do great things. Let's do this. Let's just pray to Jesus together. That Jesus would just come and help us understand how Jesus can change the world and Jesus' love and power. Can we just pray together in Jesus? They will wrap up that conversation very quickly. Because in their understanding, Jesus is a being. He's created. He's one of creation. But what John is saying, he wasn't a teacher who just so happened to, and maybe a great teacher, an amazing teacher, who just so happened to understand physical and spiritual worlds really well. He wasn't even a mirror or reflection of God. He is a three-dimensional, pure, perfect picture of God who came to us in a way that we can understand him. He is the fullness of God's perspective. He is the fullness of the character of God in a human container. There is no human that compares to Jesus. In the very beginning, he's like, you can't put all of humanity and all the great leaders of the world and put Jesus among them because he doesn't fit in that category. He isn't just one of many. He is one of one. There is no other qualified to meet with him. We tease all the time when newcomers come to our house for newcomer dinner. We'll be like, if you're looking for a perfect pastor or a perfect church, this is not it, and I am not him. Right, because we live in a world that wants to elevate personalities. We have different personalities that people want to chase and follow. And we're like, this is not about personalities. This is not about the human representation. We're about Jesus. Because we want you to encounter him, to see him. And John is saying, I have been with him in every single context. And he is the fullness of God's love and power and grace. In fact, he's saying Jesus is the uncreated creator, where nothing could be created except through Jesus. Many people have asked the question over the years, a lot of kids do, and I know it always boggles their minds, and then most adults kind of wrestle with it too. But we ask the question, well, where did God come from? Who created God? And the answer is, he wasn't created. He is. He always has been. He always will be. The fact, even just that the universe that we exist in at all is an evidence for God. The reality is this, that when it comes from nothing, back up and phrase it this way. The only thing that can ever come from nothing is nothing. The only thing that can ever come from nothing is nothing. The universe existence cries out for an explanation. And in John's view of Jesus, he's saying, man, if you look at the sun, you will go blind. It is more power than you can understand, more power than you can comprehend. And he's saying Jesus is beyond the power of the sun. Jesus is beyond the power of the sea. Jesus is beyond. After walking with him and journeying with him for so many years, before I tell you anything else about the humanity of Jesus, you have to understand he is him. He is everything. He is the uncreated creator. Jesus is the source of life. He is the source of life. He gives life to everything. No, don't get caught up that he's a good teacher. Don't get caught up in one who teaches you how to live or behave and live a good life and give you morals and values. No. He is the breath of God. He is the breath of life. He is the one that gives source and everything. And there's so much of even the Trinity wrapped up in these verses that we could spend weeks and weeks and weeks just in these verses. But he's saying he isn't a part of creation. Without him, there is no creation. We need to understand that he's not just a part of it. Without him, there is no creation. The philosopher Eve Kenyon says this. Put it this way, I love this. It says, God is not a being or a thing or an entity that exists in the total assemblage of things that exist. Right? God is not just one of the many things that exist. Rather, God is the ground and the source of the total assemblage of things that exist. That without God, nothing exists. Everything about him, it would be like trying to paint everything that exists. And you try to paint God into everything that you can't do that because he's the canvas. Without the canvas, you can't paint any of it. He is the fullness of life. He isn't a part of creation. Without him, there's no creation. Right? Jesus needed nothing external to exist. Or nothing fully can we get an illustration of how powerful and beautiful and everything that he is, other than maybe think of it this way. Everything that exists needs something else in order for it to exist, right? You and I, we need to breathe. We need blood. We need oxygen. We need food. There are many things that we need in order to exist. God in this fullness, Jesus and who John is describing, he needs no external sustenance to exist. There's nothing outside of him because he is the sustenance that fills everything, that feeds everything. There is balance and order in our world, right? Gravity holds us into place. It holds things in tension. And we think of all the things that work on our body at a molecular level, how quickly information passes through our brain cells, into the nerves, into our body to communicate, to allow us to move, to communicate, to think, to reason. And all of those things are held together in him. He's the source of it. He is the one who keeps the balance to those things. He holds the complexities. He's the one that fine-tunes all the details of life. John's saying there is one source of life, and it's Jesus. He is life. And it's through Jesus that everything has a purpose. Jesus came to bring purpose. And notice he says Jesus is the one who gives definition to light and darkness. And that this planet and all of its inhabitants has purpose because Jesus brought purpose and definition to it. You know, the odds of life existing in any way, shape, or form on any location throughout the universe are so minimal. For the random things to be able to come together and produce any amount of life, the odds are just absolutely infinitesimal. And yet, here on earth, we live where life is teeming. When every drop of water from a pond is filled with life. When there is life everywhere and every aspect of everything. And it helps us to understand there is purpose on this planet. There's purpose for this planet. There's purpose for life, and there's purpose for life and how he poured his life into us. Everything has order. Werner Heisenberger, I discovered him this week in reading through some things, and he was the 1932 Nobel Prize winner, and he's a pioneer of quantum mechanics. So everything that we know about quantum mechanics and all the comic book nerds that love quantum mechanics, and that's all the deeper we know what it is, but he is the first one to consider quantum uncertainty. He is the first one to help us understand the application of mathematical matrices to physics. He is really the main mover that modern day physics is built upon. But listen to what he says. He said, God's ideas can be understood by man because man was created in the spiritual image of God. Physics is a reflection on the divine ideas of creation. Therefore, physics is simply divine service. Everything fits together. Everything has a purpose. Everything has a place. And what John is saying is that Jesus is the one who knits it together, who holds it together, and gives purpose to everything. And everything about Jesus, he's like, I need you to understand. I'm willing to write to you about his life. I'm willing to write to you about those 3 years that I spent with him. And as I'm coming to this, the life that I spent with him, but don't you dare misread what I'm about to write to you. You cannot reduce him to a man. You cannot reduce him to a teacher. You cannot reduce him to ideas or values or morals. You cannot reduce him to a few adjectives, and you cannot reduce him to a few cute stories. This isn't a philosophy. This isn't a theory. This is personal. The word that holds all things together came to us, and his name is Jesus. I have met him, and he is everything. That's what John is writing. And as he's writing that, this is how important he wants us to get that, because he goes, now be careful, because not everybody's going to get this. Verse 10, he came into the very world that he created, but the world didn't recognize him. He came to his own people, and even they rejected him. Right, the Creator showed up and walked among us. He showed us grace. He showed us God's perspective. He contained radiance. Right, the fullness of the sun. Think of the radiance of the sun. If you and I look at it, it's more than we can handle. So he packaged his radiance in a way that he could be among us. And he walked among us. And he became human. But he didn't play human games. He didn't reduce the way that he looked at the world to the way that humans reduce the world. Right? He could have blown away humanity, and I know many of us say, why, Jesus, why didn't you just come? And this should speak volumes to us about who God is. He didn't come and blow us away, but he came to us humbly, full of love and mercy. The Creator of all things came humbly, full of love and mercy. See, humanity, we've got many things wrong with us. Sin has messed us up. And one of our great vices is humans, we tend to claim authority and purpose over other people. And we do it out of the sense that if it's not me, they're going to destroy themselves. Like every dictator that's ever lived in the world has gone into it thinking they're doing it out of altruism and mercy because they're so smart and they're so wise. They've got it all figured out. And if I don't impose this on the people that I'm overseeing and that I'm ruling, they're going to destroy our country. They're going to destroy each other. And really, we understand it's not altruistic mercy. It's ego and narcissism. But that's a whole other topic, right? It's the brokenness of humanity. They tried to make the source of life fit into their structures and the authority and purpose. And that's what we're going to see on this journey. They tried to make Jesus fit into their structures of how they saw things. But what we're going to learn, and what John is getting at here, is we reject Jesus whenever we claim authority and purpose. If we claim authority and purpose over anything, we are rejecting Jesus. All right, throughout this spiritual journey, what we're going to see over and over again is that Jesus came to replace the temple. He came to fulfill that there didn't need to be structure and order on things that are controlling and holding things fast, because he came to fulfill the law, to release people from those structures and those bondages, because he is the source of life. We begin to see in Jesus, he is the non-oppressive absolute, that wherever he is, he has a massive impact on on the world around us. Jesus isn't here. He didn't come to establish an order to things. He is order. He is purpose. He is life. There is no truth beyond Jesus. But humans struggle with that because humans love control and power. We create codes of conduct. We create morals. We justify our need to control other people. And throughout the story, we're going to see that Jesus continually exposes this brokenness in the people around him. He exposes this moralism as an oppressive lie that it is. Moralism is this. Moralism is just trying to control another person's daily life choices through emotional superiority. All right, we see it right now, even just watching some of the protests that are happening on college campuses, and it's kind of heartbreaking because in essence, you got these young students that are saying, hey, whoever has power is evil. Whoever has power is evil, and so we are going to take your power away from you by yelling and demanding that you bow to our power. So we're going to invoke power over your power, and we're going to have emotional superiority over you. And the problem is, as soon as one group claims emotional superiority, what does the other group do? We come back and claim emotional superiority over them. And it never resolves into anything healthy. In fact, even the American church has been just as guilty as this through the years. We've sometimes claimed to hold a higher ground, like the people in Jesus' time did. And we've shamed people into compliance. And we even claimed that we're emotionally, you watch online, it's easy to see every group of people claiming emotional superiority to other people. I know for some, even just kind of making that statement, it struggles because, like, Pastor, are you saying then that there aren't right things or wrong things to do, that we can't, that everybody should just be able to do whatever they want? No, I'm not saying that at all. Jesus won't say that either. But we have to understand, whenever we focus on claiming moral superiority over others, you stand in the way of Jesus being able to transform lives. And what John is saying is you and I need to get out of the way so people can see Jesus. That's the most important thing. You need to know who he is. Because whenever Jesus is presented, and that's what the gospel, when you hear the word gospel, the gospel is literally just the good news. And what is the good news? That the life found in Jesus came to humanity so that we could have life in Jesus. That Jesus came to us. The world changes when Jesus is presented because he is the truth. In fact, reading this week is interesting, and a French atheist philosopher named Luc Ferry actually credits all of human rights activity. Every human right activity that happens around the world in a positive way, he credits it back to Christianity. In fact, he links it back to John 1 right here, where John says Jesus is the Logos, that he isn't just a force, right? He's personal. That as a result, we treat each other with dignity and value. That's what Jesus does. Jesus changes everything. He's not just about morality or about teaching. In verse 12, he says, no. John's saying, you got to understand this. This is what's so important. All who believed in him and accepted him, he gave the right to become children of God. They are reborn, not with a physical birth resulting from human passion or plan, but a birth that comes from God. John, he says in the final result, he says, I'm going to tell you everything up front, and then I'm going to take you on a journey to show you how this works. I'm going to tell you exactly where I'm going in the very beginning. You have no doubt where I'm going to lead you through this. And what he's saying, and what I thought, even because he was one of them in the Jewish community at that time, what I thought that the world needed to be changed through morals and values, and what I've learned is that the world only can change when it discovers its purpose in the one who created it. The world only changes when it discovers that life can only be found in Jesus, that he is the source of life itself. And as a result, he said, on this journey, you're going to realize that life and purpose are transformed, not when you hold higher ground, but when you humbly surrender to the source of life. When you humble yourself and you surrender to the one who is the source of all things. All right, we're not going to be battling in ideals or behaviors over the summer. What we want to do is go on a spiritual journey with the source of life. Here's the reality, that the more you learn about Jesus, some of you have been walking with Jesus for decades, and Jesus has become ordinary. You might have read these verses and you just read them, and you read right past them. But you should read these verses and it should humble you to your knees. It should grip the heart of who you are, because he is not just one that came to teach. He is life. He is love. And he invites me to be his son, invites us to be daughters and children and be a part of life in him. Why would I ever claim anything authority over that, to try to rally people to me, to try to claim my way? No, the more we discover who Jesus is, the more it humbles us. He causes us to lay aside our rights, our emotional needs, and lay aside our need to control. And we are humbled and we surrender to him. But the safest place to surrender, I mean, think about that. You're surrendering to life. You're surrendering to love. You're surrendering to peace. You're surrendering or you're giving over to him. You and I can do whatever we want, but he just says, no. We can be his children, not superior to others, but we find our rightful place and purpose in him. See, John is really making sure when you read these encounters, is the next several months as we kind of take time and we're just going to look at Jesus. Like, of all the things, I'm like, nope, we're just going to talk about Jesus. That's it. We're going to look at him. We're going to encounter him. We're going to see him, all the things about him, because he is the reason we're here. And John summarizes, let me tell you about him. He summarizes all that in verse 14. He says, so the Word became human and made his home among us. He was full of unfailing love and faithfulness, and we have seen his glory, the glory of the Father's one and only Son. Life itself became one of us, made his home here. He uses an interesting word there. It's translated here, made his home. In the original Greek, he tented among us. He pitched a tent among us, or he tabernacled among us. It was like the precursor of what the temple was. They walked with the tabernacle. It's the presence of God that was among the people. And what he's saying is, none of the fullness of life made his temporary home among us. And it's an allusion to what he's going to keep helping us understand. He replaces the temple. We don't need an external place of power, because life itself moves into our hearts and comes among us. And what I love, if you summarize that verse, it's John's just saying this is who Jesus is. Jesus is undiminished deity in fragile humanity. John, if you met him like I met him, you will be blown away, because he lives in a contrast of the undiminished deity, but in fragile humanity. The source of life, the purpose of reality, was willing to come humbly in this fragile human form. Why? So he could connect with us, so you could connect with him. Where you're supposed to be, that he is one to be known and loved. Jesus is one to be known and loved, right? The Logos, the thing that holds everything together, is not impersonal. He's personal. And when he loves you, it's like nothing you've ever experienced love before. He loves you in a way, if you're married and you love your spouse, it's like saying, my love for my spouse is a light bulb compared to the sun. I love my wife with everything that's within me, but compared to the love that Jesus brings, it's like the sun is blazing in that moment. Right? My goal for each and every one of us is never that you would come to church, because we don't come to church, we are the church, right? And to change your behavior, or just to get you to join a church. No, I want you to come, as Pastor Christy talked about last week, I want you to come and just be captivated by him. Be captivated by his love. He is faithful. He never changes. He's the one to be known and to be loved. Like you can depend on him like you depend on gravity. I don't know if I was maybe the only nerd that was thinking this way, but about a month ago when the eclipse was kind of coming through and everyone's up looking at the moon, I was just so grateful that thing didn't come any closer. Because if that moon gets any closer, I was like, we're in a big trouble. But God is that faithful. He holds things that are beyond our control in control. And we can trust him even when we're going through the most difficult things because he is unchanging. He is faithful. He is loving. And we can depend upon him that we won't miss anything. And his love for you will never change. And as a result, he said, so Jesus is undiminished in deity and fragile humanity. Jesus is the one to be known and loved. And he says, Jesus holds all majesty and truth. Because I'm about to tell you some things. Don't you dare underestimate him. I'm about to tell you some stories that involve humans and complex humans. Don't you dare devalue him. I'm about to tell you his story, but don't you dare mistake his frail tent or mercy or immense love as fragile, because he is far from fragile. He holds the power of the sun in his eyes. John encountered him, and this is what he comes away with. In fact, I came across this picture this week that I think it just sums up what John's trying to get across. This is a picture of galaxy NGC 4603. All right, that's one of many. It's a picture that the Hubble telescope took recently, and it is 107 million light years away from us. That means if you traveled at the speed of light for 107 million years, then you would reach the edge of it. And in this colossal city of stars, there are billions of stars that inhabit it. In this colossal city of stars, right? And he is the one that galaxy rests upon. That galaxy rests upon him, upon the fullness of who he is. It cannot exist without him. Many times we will pray and we'll worship and we'll say, Lord, may the weight of your presence, may your glory come upon us. And if the fullness of his glory were upon us, we could not withstand it. It would be like encountering the sun, but in a billion times more. And what John is saying is you have to understand that at some point, because he gets this picture in Revelation, some point we're going to be released from this temporal reality, and you and I get to go visit cities like that. We get to go visit cities like that are among his presence, among his life, among the fullness of who he was, that massive, imposing, all-consuming God, and yet he chose to birth you, to breathe life into you, to hold you, to ground you, to give you purpose. John spent his life with Jesus, right? 3 years in person, leaning in. He was the beloved one. He was in the inner circle. He was with them at every moment. And whenever you spend a lot of time with someone, what do you normally get to know? All the ways that they do things wrong. All their weaknesses, right? You want to know things about me? Just ask Christy. She's got a list. John spent all that time with Jesus. And what he came away with, he's everything. He's life. He's love. He's mercy. He's purpose. He is God. He is the Logos. He is everything we need to exist. Don't you dare miss the point. He is no ordinary man. Verse 16, he says this. From Jesus' abundance, All right, this is after decades of following Jesus, understanding the fullness of who he is after he gave his life and went to the cross, rose again. After he was encountered, he was transported into the heavens, all the things that John experienced. He says, from his abundance, we have received one gracious blessing after another. For the law that was given through Moses, right? What I used to think was important was doing the right things, being in the right place, taking who is in the right and the real people of God. But God's unfailing love and faithfulness came through Jesus Christ. No one has ever seen God, but the unique one. What other word is there for Jesus other than the unique one, who is himself God, is near to the Father's heart, and he has revealed God to us. My goal today, and really with this series, it's not to educate you. It's not to get you to change your behavior. It's not to make you feel good, just if you're going through difficult times. I just want Jesus to be revealed to you. The Word, the source of life, the great I am. Because once you encounter him, he transforms everything. If he was just a teacher, if he was just a good guy, if he was just a God amongst created gods who inhabit the cosmos, you can dismiss him. But if he who is who John says he is, you and I cannot do anything other than to simply, humbly submit to him. You pray with me. Jesus, we try to put into words what we can't fully fathom. Out of the fullness of your being, you caused earth to be teeming with life. And you have breathed your life in us and among us. And when you came to show us the fullness of who you are, undiminished deity and fragile humanity, you let us know that you can be known and you can be loved. That you hold all majesty in your hands. And that you've called us to be your children. Lord, I don't know if there's words to really understand this, for us to live our lives day to day and to fully grasp this. But I pray, Lord, will you begin and continue to open our eyes. Lord, I pray for those of us that have walked with you for many years, and yet we've become accustomed to you. We've been able to make it routine and understand, thinking we've got you figured out. May we be like John and be blown away by you once again. May we understand how beautiful you are. That's you. Can you just take a moment, just make that personal? Just make that your personal prayer. Maybe today you're here and maybe your understanding of Jesus has been about church, it's been about rules, it's been about maybe there's a spiritual reality. Maybe some people have it right, maybe some people have it wrong, but today all I'm presenting to you is Jesus. the source of life, who came to this earth so that you could know him, that you could encounter him. And he says, if you just believe that he is everything that John says he is, your life will be changed. He will work with you and transform you and help you understand his love and his fullness and his purpose. All you need to do is to humbly submit to him. Just praying a prayer like this, just saying, Jesus, I don't know everything that I believe, but help my unbelief, that I would know you. To think that you would want to know me is more than I can understand. And I admit today, Jesus, I've thought I've had it all together a lot more than I do. And I ask you to forgive me for not seeing you for who you really are. So today, I choose Jesus to be my life. If that's you and you prayed that prayer or a prayer like that this morning, I want to keep you in my prayers. I want to encourage you on your spiritual journey, and I'm not going to call you out. But if that's you today, will you just simply raise a hand and make eye contact with me? I want to just know that I want to encourage you. And just believe that God is doing some great things. Yeah. Are there others? Yeah, there's many. Thank you. In the balcony. Yeah. Love it. I love it because what God is saying is he wants to come on this journey with you. In fact, at the back of the auditorium before you leave today, for any of you, we have a little booklet that we put together just called The Spiritual Journey. Because we believe God walks with us and he takes us on this journey, and love for you to grab that booklet. There's some directions, some tools in there just to help you, ways that we can come along and encourage each other on this spiritual journey that God has for us, that he wants to work in our lives. Because we believe that he's going to change us and transform us, that he moves all things together. And Lord, we just come together. We thank you for how good you are. Lord, will you help our hearts to be captivated by you? Help us to see you again. Help us to notice you in everything around us, how you are speaking to us, how you want to be known. You are not an impersonal force. You are the Word, the Logos, who is God among us, who came so that we could know you, the fullness of love, the fullness of mercy, the fullness of grace, that your intensity of your being would change us, that we would find our life in you, our purpose in you alone. Thank you, Jesus.